if I were George, if I were Whoopi, I'd be pretty worried right about now. They're skating on thin ice. Bob Iger, who runs Disney, reportedly not very happy with having to fork over $16 million because of George's little insubordination episode. This could be really problematic for them. Hello, welcome to the show. It's good to see everyone as we go into the Christmas holidays on this Friday. See, I got my Christmas sweater. I'm ready. Going to a Christmas party tonight. We're going to do like a sing-along. I'm playing the piano and singing, of course. Anyway, good times ahead. I even made some food to bring over. So it's been a very busy day and it's going to be a very busy weekend. And you know what? I'm still going to be here next week because I'm committed to this just like you are committed to this. And we are here every day, as I say, on the front lines of history together. Part of that history is going to be Whoopi Goldberg. I mean, I actually think that this lady is going to be history. I don't know, maybe even in the first quarter of this year, we'll see. You know who I'm talking about. You know who. This is what she calls Trump, you know. You know who.
All of you. Talking about you, it's us. He's not going to, say, oh, you're with a white guy. I'm going to keep you from being deported. No, he's going to deport you and put the white guy with someone else. The man is out there. He's also...
Woo! Okay, she's out there too, shall we say? I mean, Whoopi, good luck. You know what? You have a little bit of a situation right now because the president-elect really doesn't like you very much. But can you blame him? I mean, you, after all, Whoopi Goldberg, were out there insisting that somehow it was his fault, that he came within millimeters of being killed, of being shot in the head. Somehow, according to Whoopi Goldberg, I mean, this is how crazy she is. It was his fault. He deserved it. I mean, this is the kind of logic you're seeing from these, frankly, maniacs over at ABC News, which, let me add, is on the federal airwaves, right? Those are federally owned airwaves. This is not cable. This is not streaming. This is ABC News, the American broadcast company. Watch.
JD, clearly you've not been to one of your boss's rallies. Because you believe this insanity. I mean, he has been inciting violence since 2016, telling them to beat up hecklers, threaten to shoot looters and migrants. They have, I don't remember Bill Clinton about what was going on in his White House when it was sprayed by 29 shots. I don't remember Obama blaming opponents when his White House was shot up in 2011. You have to really take a look in a mirror to see the reflection. One of the reasons that everybody has survived is because the Secret Service has been doing their job. Let's start with that. That's, So quit blaming folks until you decide to take a look at what's coming out of your mouth. You didn't want to tell people that it was a lie that you've been talking about when you're sending people to go against folks in the community. Yeah. In Ohio. You know it's a lie. But you talk about, well, Joy, you're going to bring it up. Yeah. Because you know what he did.
J.D. Vance.
Yes,
but besides all the
unbelievable. I mean, this is such blatantly irresponsible, quote unquote, journalism. It started off by a group of journalists, right? You had Meredith Vieira on the show. You had Barbara Walters on the show. I think Barbara Walters, the now deceased Barbara Walters, would be really, really disappointed to see what this has evolved into. And you guys are like, what's going on with the clapping? I see one of your comments there. Let me just say, the clapping is done by the audience, and they pay personnel at ABC News to actually find people that want to go to this show. And so there are bookers just for the audience. And then they have people that hold up signs and they're like, clap, 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 clap for Whoopi. And you have to clap for Whoopi. Think about the cost of the people that book the audience. Think about the cost of the people that hold up the signs and kind of get the audience going and revved up, right? Because you got to entertain them before everybody comes out to do The View. This is very costly. And then you factor in, you get an irresponsible a-hole like that, Whoopi Goldberg, in the position of saying blatantly irresponsible stuff. You know, it's very interesting. Since Donald Trump was elected, she started getting really, really quiet. Did you notice that? Like, we didn't hear as much from her. I think because, and actually I know because, and this has been reported, our friends over at the New York Post had this story, that she was being told to kind of rein it in, right? So she's being dialed back, if you would, which is the right and appropriate thing to do under the circumstances. I mean, that kind of rhetoric is just so gross and really, I think, in so many ways, encouraging this division that we all want to get away from on public airwaves. So she's had to tone it down because the producers there have told her, you gotta tone it down. And yet now she just figures she can go after Elon, right? Because that'll work. Oh, that'll work really well. Because let me tell you, Elon has a little bit of a bone to pick with your boss. Right? Elon really does not like Bob Iger, as we know, right? Remember?
There's advertisers leaving. We talked to Bob Iger today.
I hope they stop.
You hope?
Don't advertise.
You don't want them to advertise?
No.
What do you mean?
If somebody's going to try to blackmail me with advertising, blackmail me with money, go f*** yourself.
And then he looks for Bob Iger,
But
CEO of Disney.
Go f*** yourself. Is that clear? I hope it is. Hey, Bob.
Hey, Bob. Hey, Bobby.
Well,
Bobby,
let me
that would
ask you
be
then-
Whoopi Goldberg's boss. So I don't know what she's thinking here. Maybe she's trying to please the boss. Maybe she's trying to hang on to that job. Whoopi Goldberg just decided to go straight for the jugular on Elon. They're trying to kind of make this wedge, right? Like divide and conquer. I think that's the thinking right now. If we can just get Elon away from Trump, then Trump's more on his own. Elon's too powerful because he controls Twitter, etc. Listen to where she's going with this right now. This is from yesterday's episode.
Who is in charge? Because I've been saying it for a while.
Yes, you have.
I've been saying that I think Elon Musk believes he's president. I do.
Well, you've been calling him vice president.
I've called him vice president. I called him president because I don't know what JD is doing. I hardly ever. I don't remember the last time we even talked about JD.
You're right. He's planning the presidency when they get rid of Trump.
So you think it's Musk Vance?
Possible.
Hey, you know who? Stay away from the stairways. Because, you know, people put the leg out to trip you going down the stairs. Watch out.
Is she just joking about an assassination attempt? I mean, come on, lady, come on. But you see where this is going. And then I was watching MSNBC this morning, the same kind of thing. Chris Matthews gets on there and he's like, oh, you know, Elon's stealing the show. So they're all trying to basically chip away at this idea that somehow Elon's running everything because then, oh, it'll make Donald Trump mad. And then they can separate the two. You know, there's a method to the madness. Think about how Kamala Harris went after Donald Trump during that debate. Remember how targeted that was? And so she didn't talk about any of the issues. No, why would she bother doing that? Kamala Harris doesn't know how to talk about the issues. We all know that, of course. She went straight for the jugular. She started going after things like crowd size, his rallies, blah, 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 blah. And the next thing you know, he's getting kind of flustered. He's getting kind of mad. So they're figuring, oh, we just employ the same technology. We just try and get under his skin by trying to say that Elon's got all the power, et cetera, and that he's trying to take it away from Donald Trump, and that's going to be a problem. Good luck with that. Good luck with that. Because you know what, Whoopi? Elon does have a lot of power. And Donald Trump does have a lot of power. And Donald Trump has a new head of the FCC, which governs your little network there, ABC News, which is run by Disney and Bob Iger, which already had to fork over $16 million, 15 to the Trump library, another $1 million to the Trump lawyers. So I'm just thinking, if Elon really wants to play dirty, and I don't think he's afraid to, and if Donald Trump really wants to take you down, Whoopi, you're going to be out of a job faster than you can ever imagine. I mean, you know who may also be out of a job? Think about it. One Bob Iger. I don't know. I mean, everybody keeps saying he's going to retire at some point. He's going to retire. He doesn't like to talk about the retirement, by the way. Incidentally, I can just tell you that. In fact, when he would come on to do interviews with me on Bloomberg, I always hear from the PR person, can you stay away from the retirement thing? He really doesn't like to talk about the retirement thing. Well, at some point, Bob, you will have to retire. And you probably don't want Elon on your tail. So maybe it would be smart to kind of, tone the attack dogs down there over on The View. I mean, especially considering they're now wrapped up in, did you see this, guys? This potential criminal investigation. The View is being accused of colluding with one Liz Cheney to tamper with witnesses in the J6 investigation. I mean, just exactly what were they up to? I'd really like to know. Don't forget how sort of all over this story they were. If you recall, Liz Cheney was on and on and on about how you can't actually tamper with witnesses. This is really serious stuff. That would be criminal. Remember?
Donald Trump, just weeks away from being invested with the immense powers of the presidency, calling for a criminal investigation into Liz Cheney over witness tampering after a report from House Republicans singled her out, accusing her of colluding with a witness on the January 6th committee and recommending she be investigated for.
Yeah, I have a feeling she may be investigated. But I want to back up and just remind you, it was ABC News that kept reporting they had so much access to Liz Cheney. And Liz Cheney was like, don't you dare tamper with witnesses.
Allegation she made at the close of this week's hearing that witnesses coming before the committee have been threatened by people close to Trump.
Do you know who was doing it?
I don't want to comment on that. But it's very serious. It really goes to the heart of our legal system, and it's something the committee will certainly be reviewing.
So you think some of the testimony you received wasn't truthful because people were threatened?
The way that I would put it is that it gives us a real insight into how people around the former president are operating, into the extent to which they believe that they can affect the testimony of witnesses before the committee. And it's something we take very seriously. And it's something that people should be aware of. It's a very serious issue. And I would imagine the Department of Justice would be very interested in and would take that very seriously as well.
In fact, Cheney told me that the committee may make a criminal referral to the Justice Department recommending that anybody that attempted to influence witness testimony before the committee be prosecuted for witness tampering.
Oh,
Robin?
my goodness. Right. Gosh darn it. So what about this? The report that the House is now revealing, where they're now recommending this investigation into Liz Cheney over alleged witness tampering while on the J6 committee, because you see, there's this text message between her and Cassidy Hutchinson. Now, Cassidy Hutchinson was somehow friends with that Alyssa Farah on The View. See, it comes all back to ABC and The View. Well, one of the ABC programs. So Liz Cheney was introduced to this Cassidy Hutchinson by none other than one of the View hosts. And if you look at this exchange, basically, and I'm showing you the text message there, she's saying, hi, this is Cassidy. And, I wanted to talk to you because I want to talk to you about my testimony, et cetera. There was a back and forth you see between Cassidy and Alyssa from The View, in which Alyssa was saying, Liz is kind of nervous about talking to you because she wants to make sure that she's doing this the proper way, et cetera, et cetera. And then we find this text where, I don't know, any sense of propriety kind of went out the window, and they started conversing over text message and most likely over phone call. That's what needs to be discovered. And so I think that Kash Patel is going to have a complete field day. And this is sad, right? Because obviously this kind of stuff shouldn't be happening in America. But I will say this. They got to get to the bottom of it. And if you got ABC News trying to manipulate the election by interfering, going out there, working together with Liz Cheney to tamper with witnesses. Remember how Whoopi used to fawn over Liz Cheney? I mean, it's all kind of adding up, right? Then you've got a real problem. Now, the other thing to keep in mind, as I said, is that Elon really cannot stand Bob Iger, because Bob Iger tried to sink his company. This is the CEO of Disney, which would be Whoopi's boss, George Stephanopoulos' boss. And Whoopi's out there saying this, that, and the other now about Elon. I think this is going to get really difficult. Really, really, really difficult for Iger, for ABC News top brass, and for these anchors. Take a look at this story. Haha. I like the New York Post. Title on the sleaziest ABC. ABC's George Stephanopolous was repeatedly warned not to use the word rape by producer, but said it anyway, according to sources. So Disney CEO, Bob, had to go through and approve the $16 million settlement, despite the fact that they told George over and over again, don't do this, don't say this, you know, it's going to trigger him, please don't do this. And what did George do? He did it anyway. According to this article, George Stephanopolous was repeatedly told by his executive producer not to use the word rape while going on air to talk about Donald Trump. And yet the ABC News anchor completely ignored the warning, and that cost his network $16 million. Now, I realize some of you are saying, yeah, he re-signed. You know, those re-signing deals, they're a little bit sketchy. They're a little bit sketchy because sometimes those networks like to re-sign people only because then it gives them a little bit more leverage. In other words, maybe there's an out in the contract. Maybe there's an out for insubordination. So interesting that this is all now coming forward. Remember, I've played this before. Remember, like he said it not once, not twice, multiple times. Here we go.
Still get judged for it today.
I'm asking you a very simple question.
And I answered it. You're shaming me for my political choices.
I'm asking you a question about why you endorse someone who's been found liable for rape.
It was not a criminal court. This was a civil court. It was a civil court. And by the way, she joked about the judgment and what she was going to do with all that money, and I find that offensive.
I'm asking you about the man
as a rape victim who's been shamed for years now because of her rape, you're trying to shame me again by asking me this political question.
You've repeated that again.
I think it's offensive. As a woman, I find it offensive. For my political choices, I've endorsed the man that I believe is best for our country. It's not Joe Biden. And you looked at the dueling rallies yesterday in Georgia. Laken Riley's family was with Donald Trump. They weren't with Joe Biden. The same guy yesterday that apologized for calling her killer an illegal, who wasn't illegal. And here you are trying to shame a rape victim. I find it disgusting.
I mean, you keep saying I'm shaming you.
You are. The question, it is.
How is the question asking you about a presidential candidate who's been
You're asking a rape victim.
And there's no question about that. And you've courageously talked about that.
Because I've been raped. I think that's disgusting.
No, I'm questioning your political choices because you're supporting
me. You're
someone who's been found liable for rape. Actually, I'm not trying to shame you.
You are. That's exactly
what you're doing. You're not answering the
question.
I think it's disgusting.
Well, you're welcome to say that, but you have to answer the question. Why are you supporting someone who's been found liable for rape?
And he did it again. Bing, bing, bing. You know, we could play a drinking game there with that one. Georgie, boom, boom. I mean, he's been told, right? So why would he do that? Except he deliberately wanted to provoke in some way, shape, or form, or he wanted that to be the narrative, or somebody up on top in the Democrat Party. Don't forget, he used to work for the Democrat Party. He used to work actually for Bill Clinton in the White House. And now he presents himself as a straightforward news anchor. I'm sorry, I'm not buying any of it. Now he's in deep trouble. And so, sure, maybe they renewed this thing, but as Variety pointed out, he is actually looking at a future in question. Maybe they'll say, hey, you can do Good Morning America, but maybe you can't be our signature political anchor anymore. Maybe you can't host This Week with Georgie Stephanopolous anymore because this is clearly a bias, and you've shown that bias. And now we really know about that bias, not because we suspected it before and we heard it on air, but actually because your producer specifically told you, and yet you did that anyway. I'm looking at all your comments here, and I know you have no use for it. Don, I saw that news actually out of Germany. Absolutely horrible stuff. We can maybe talk about that a little bit later in the show. It's just really a downer. And why is it always the Christmas market in the town square in a little town in Germany, right? Anyway, so sad. Back to what we're talking about here, however. The Manhattan jury had ruled that Trump was not liable for rape. And so why did George keep doing this? Because he wanted that to be the narrative. And sure, okay, you know, this article says, guess what? Woohoo, he's doing a new deal. And they're paying him some ungodly sum of money. They signed a new multi-year contract. But again, I would just remind you guys, look, I've had many of these contracts. And my last few contracts never had outs. And if he's smart, he got a contract that didn't have an out. In other words, they still have to pay you. In my case, for example, Fox made it clear that they did not want me after I said a few things that actually, by the way, I was totally entitled to say, and management had actually, believe it or not, okayed copy, et cetera. Because back in those days, I actually had to write out the whole script and get everybody to sign off on it. And then, if they had an issue, they would tell me. But, all of a sudden, I woke up one day and get a phone call saying, the show's not going to be on the air, and there you have it. And then I get a phone call saying, not only is your show not on the air, and I think I had a pre-scheduled vacation, but we actually don't want you coming back. So I was flabbergasted. I was stunned. I couldn't believe it. They had a press release ready to go, and you know what? I was under contract, so I couldn't say anything. I couldn't talk to anybody because then I'd be in violation of the contract, et cetera. And so my point just being that even if George signed a deal where there isn't an out, Disney still has an out. They may have signed with him just, to sign with him and then kind of keep him quiet, if you would. Neil Cavuto. Did you see the news on Neil? He's out over 28 years at Fox News and he's gone. We're going to talk about that. I have some thoughts on it for you that I want to share. So that's coming up. But before we do, again, more on this mess at Disney. I mean, it's sort of funny, right? Because Disney was already struggling. The stock price. I know Don kind of hates Disney too. So I'm looking at his comments here. And he hasn't really thought it was much of a company to be involved with. I'm just checking out the stock price. We saw a little bit of recovery in the market, of course, today. But if you look at the Disney stock price, don't forget Disney had been trading up around, $200 a share back in 2020. And then you look at where it is nowadays, and maybe it's above. I mean, it's recovered a little bit. And I think some of these media stocks, which had really gotten trounced upon, because let's face it, we all know that the action is over here. The action is in streaming. And I'm laughing because one of you guys just said, Fox did you a favor. And I totally agree. I actually totally agree. I mean, it was hard to understand at the time. But one thing I've learned is I much prefer being on my own, shall we say, and having all that kind of opportunity to say what I think when I think it and not be beholden to scripts and multi-levels of middle management, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, so Disney is facing all kinds of challenges. And this is why, I mean, if Bob doesn't turn it around, then he's really going to be effed, in Elon's words, okay? Like, this is not good. I mean, he's got a lot riding, for example, on the remake of Snow White, which, so far is not really looking good. It's getting lots of downvotes. Thanks to our friends over at Breitbart for catching this. Nearly 1.4 million downvotes. But, are you surprised? Look at who they cast in the lead role. A woman who, let's just say, doesn't really seem a lot like Snow White in that she really doesn't like many people. She doesn't like Snow White. I mean, I forget about, whether she's half Hispanic or not. It's like none of that. I'm not going to go there with that. I know a lot of people are upset about that, but I think the fact that she's so self-centered, annoying. I mean, there are many adjectives we could use to describe this Rachel Zegler, but it's not endearing or likable, some of the qualities that Snow White is supposed to possess, right?
I mean, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so.
Oh God, here we go.
There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Weird.
You're weird.
So no prince or a different kind of prince?
We have a different approach to what I'm sure a lot of people will assume is a love story.
Huh. Imagine that.
Just because, we cast a guy in the movie.
What? You did what?
One of those things that I think everyone's going to have their assumptions about what it's actually going to be.
Yeah, that's going to suck.
It's really not about the love story at all, which is really, really wonderful.
So it's all about you, right?
And whether or not she finds love along the way is anybody's guess until 2024. all of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, she's not really likable. Not really likable. I mean, she for some reason doesn't think that there's any real meaning in finding love and living happily ever after. She really represents everything that's wrong about youth nowadays, right? Like the new generation. I actually think the new generation is more conservative though than you think. I mean, you look, for example, at young men and how they just turned up in droves for Donald Trump, and how young men and increasingly young women as well are revolting against this wokeism that is making it so mandatory that you do things like give your gender. I mean, this Snow White girl, remember that with the she, her, they, whatever? She insisted everybody put their gender on Twitter, and because one actress, Gina, you remember, she was a former MMA fighter. I mean, Gina, I'm blanking right now. help me. We're on a live show. Now I wish I had a script. But Gina was like, I don't even understand. Like, I mean, what happened? Why would they fire me because I don't want to put my pronouns? I don't even understand what these pronouns are. So she put like bebop boop on her Twitter profile, and Rachel Zegler decided to attack her. And the next thing you know, she was out. Hey, guess what? It's coming full circle back to Elon, because Elon Musk funded her lawsuit against Disney, because it turns out you can't actually fire someone. Carano, thank you. I almost said Caruso because, opera's on my head. I think I have to sing tonight. It was Carano. Thank you, Don. Thank you, Panzer. You guys got it. Oh my gosh, totally coming to my rescue. Hanella as well. But yeah, she's something else. Bebop boop. Remember that, okay? So I suspect that Elon really does have it out for Bob in that, he took on that case. He's really taking on a lot with Twitter. He's X, forgive me. He's not going to forget that Disney pulled all its advertising, and all of these things are going to come together, and they're going to spell trouble. It's going to trickle on down to these anchors. Sure enough. So one anchor that is now out of a gig, maybe he's going to another network. I don't know, but he spent 28 years at Fox. I knew him well over there. He got quite ill and had heart surgery during the 2016 election. And he was scheduled to anchor all the primetime coverage for Fox Business from the RNC and from the DNC. And I got a phone call one day and they said, listen, Neil is really sick. He's in the hospital. He's getting this operation. Would you do this? And I said, sure, of course. And I remember it was just, again, history being made. I was there with the late Lou Dobbs, and I brought Lou on every night. I'd say to Lou, hey, can you stay for a little bit? Because he had his show on right beforehand. And I would start, and he'd say, sure. And then we'd just have so much fun. And we were talking that, before you knew it, often he'd stay with me for quite a bit of that primetime coverage. And so we'd do that show every night there from the RNC, from the DNC. And I was doing that for Neil, who was scheduled to be there. I mean, Neil has covered a lot of huge events there for Fox Business. He had the 4:00 show on Fox, and it didn't do that well. I think there are a few things involved with that. I mean, one, it was business news, and you don't necessarily turn on Fox News for business news. He had a Fox Business show as well. But business news at 4:00, in theory, sounds good, right? Because the market's closing at 4, but if the market's not really that interesting that day, then are you really leading with the market, et cetera? I think it became more challenging as Donald Trump rose in popularity, and I don't think Neil really embraced a lot of the Trumpism or the MAGA stuff to the extent that other people did. And so that may have cost him in the ratings, and ultimately, it came time for renewal, and my sourcing on it suggests that, they just weren't willing to pay what they had been paying him in the past, which is really kind of too bad if you think about it. I know that, no love lost. A lot of you guys don't necessarily like what his views were on Trump, et cetera, but he helped build the network. I mean, been there 28 years, and it shows you there's no loyalty. It's like Washington, D.C., right? And, I could tell that he's not necessarily pleased by this, because I know Neil, and I watched this clip that I'm going to show you. And it struck me as very rushed. Granted, it was at the end of the show, but he put it at the end of the show for a reason. And it was clearly read off a prompter. And there was no real emotion in it. He just sped through this thing. And he said something interesting, which is that he's not leaving journalism. I'm just leaving here, meaning Fox News. Take a look.
This is it, the final segment. But today I also wanted to let you know this is my final show. I am leaving Fox. I've been planning this day for some time. This just seemed like a good time. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, nearly it's about time. After all, I've been doing this for nearly 3 decades here. You know, there are people working with me now who weren't even born when I started at Fox. That's how old I am. But I'm not leaving journalism, I'm just leaving here. But I'm forever grateful to my bosses here. They've been very good to me these many years and offered a very generous opportunity for me to stay years more. That's pretty amazing considering the fact that, I don't know, I might have missed a day or two here and there, battling everything from multiple sclerosis and COVID to countless infections, even open heart surgery. Then there were all of those awful series of hangnails. Don't get me started on that one. I might have been unlucky in health, but very lucky for the support I got here and the things I got to do here. Because I got to do what I love to do, report the news. Not shout the news, not blast the news, not, well, call names. Just call balls and strikes, following the news. To hold truth to power and fairness to all. That's it. That's me. But while you see me, you really don't see the people behind me, the producers and writers and cameramen and directors across 3 shows all these years carrying me, and that can be a pretty heavy lift. So blame them if I said something that ticked you off, and apparently I did a lot. But now I'm off and saving my biggest thanks for last, for you. All of you who've allowed me into your homes all of these years. My dad used to tell me, Neil, stay humble because in your case it will come in handy. I don't think he'd have ever imagined my incredible run, but I do think he'd remind me to thank those who made it possible. All of you. Okay, truth be told, most of you. I'm leaving out the nasty ones who called me fat, forgetting, as I often said, that the camera adds 50 pounds, until one dude saw me in person and said, you know, Neil, it wasn't the camera. Or those who emailed that I do things that I think were anatomically impossible to do. I got a kick out of those. Actually, I got a kick out of them all. Let's just say you kept me grounded. My Irish mom used to say we should count our blessings and never forget who blessed us. In the end, that should be our focus, and that is mine tonight. Not all the stuff that divides us or the nastiness that embitters us, but the far more important stuff that unites us and defines us and lifts us. I tried to appeal to those better angels, and I'm grateful you gave me that chance. That is why I say goodbye with only good thoughts and good wishes. I hope you have a very Merry Christmas and a wonderful holiday season. May the new year be as fulfilling for you as these nearly 30 incredible years you've blessed me. That means a lot.
Oh, yeah, you know what? It was a very classy speech. It was fast, but it was classy, okay? Like, I know you guys, you know, I don't know how much he really disliked Trump. Like, I would say that Wallace really, really disliked Trump. Neil just kind of always liked to speak truth to power, as he says, right? In a way, but that sometimes maybe got like a little bit repetitive. I don't know. But he was always a good guy. He is a good guy. Like, he doesn't really, how does one say this? There was no meanness in there. He's a genuinely nice person who wants to do the right thing. And look, as a journalist, what are you trying to do? You're trying to look at whatever is sort of in that position of power, whoever's in that position of power, and you're trying to pick it apart and poke holes in things. And he did that during Obama, right? And he did that during Clinton. And he did that during Trump. And I think that the audience really just wasn't there for that. I mean, it's Fox after all, right? And the other thing is he doesn't really have like a firm view on stuff. He's just always sort of nitpicking at this stuff. So if you don't have a really firm view, then why are people tuning in to cable television? I mean, you know, I have a pretty firm view on stuff, and sometimes you agree and sometimes you don't agree, and that's all fine. But you're always going to know where I stand. And I think that people gravitate to that. They really want that opinion. And then the other concept here, again, it's business news, but it's not really, you're not going necessarily to Fox for business news. And if you are going anywhere for business news, maybe you're going to go over and see Kramer hopefully you're seeing 76 Research. Don't forget I have 76 Research, my financial research company, 76research.com. You can sign up, code word dollar deal, LLAR, $1 for the first 2 months. Hey, you can cancel anytime. It goes to $9.95 thereafter. Again, you can cancel anytime, get your money back, so nothing at risk. And we have a lot of ideas on how you can play this market right now. 76research.com. We've done incredibly well. So hopefully you're getting it from a publication like mine, a research company like mine that's hand-holding you to the extent that we're really showing you what we believe is the future for investing right now. Or, you know, if you want to be entertained, you're going to go over and catch Kramer's show, and he's got an opinion on stocks, like a really firm opinion, buy or sell or hold. Again, because you know what, like sometimes it's just annoying to just hear the headlines. We want to hear a take on things. So I wish Neil all the best. I think it's kind of lousy that after 28 years, they're like, bye. Like, it's just kind of very Fox-like, very Murdoch-like. But hey, it's business, right? It's business. Neil will move on to someplace else. And look, he's marketable right now because he's sort of a conservative, right? He is a conservative. I mean, he believes in free market capitalism and all that good stuff. So he can go somewhere, CNBC, maybe MSNBC. Hey, maybe they need somebody to join The View. And he can be the conservative voice. The conservative that maybe doesn't like Trump, right? Trump came out and put out a Truth Social today saying good riddance. It was the lowest rated show on Fox. I think he's right. Neil would laugh at that. He's actually raising Neil up by writing that. And he's like, good riddance, you know, Fox didn't need him. And so that was sort of the punchline. But that will probably help Neil as he moves forward in his career, maybe to a more liberal network. Hey, CNN needs people. They're dying over there at CNN, aren't they? Again, 76 Research, 76research.com if you're interested in investing. You know, one thing I really do have an opinion on is this craziness that we're seeing out of Washington, D.C. So we are perhaps moments away from a shutdown. Mike Johnson says, no, you don't need to worry about it. Here he is.
Yeah, because I've got a couple of things I got to wrap up in a few moments upstairs, but I expect that we will be proceeding forward. We will not have a government shutdown, and we will meet our obligations for our farmers who need aid, for the disaster victims all over the country, and for making sure that military and essential services and everyone who relies upon the federal government for a paycheck is paid over the holidays. I'll give you the more details here in just a few moments.
Have you talked to President-elect Trump
Okay.
about this?
I'm not so sure we're going to avoid a shutdown, okay? I appreciate the confidence, but I'm not so sure about that. What I don't appreciate is the sort of saber rattling that you're hearing from the likes of, say, one Alejandro Mayorkas, our Homeland Security chief that has allowed millions of people to pour across our border, our open border with Mexico. Here he is speaking with Margaret Brennan, really trying to scare the heck out of everyone. You better sign this thing or else. We can't have a shutdown or else. Wait for it.
We could be just hours away from another government shutdown unless Congress comes up with some kind of funding mechanism. Do you have a sense yet of how operations will be impacted by shutdown?
Oh, most certainly, and they must come up with the funding for the Department of Homeland Security and the entire federal government. We are approaching the holidays. Let me give you one powerful example. We're going to have tens of thousands of TSA employees working an incredibly high volume of passenger traffic throughout our airports across the country, and they will be doing so, keeping the American public safe without pay. We're going to be losing our Countering Weapons of Mass Destruction office.
Wait, what? Watch.
We need the funding.
Losing the Weapons of Mass Destruction
The
office?
Countering Weapons of Mass Destruction, its funding will end, and we will have to redirect its personnel to other parts of our department. The implications and the consequences are serious, especially when it comes to Homeland Security.
How do you figure out which office to shut down?
So there are really rules that govern who are so essential that they must remain in service, even though they will not be paid.
So how many federal workers, do you have any ballpark estimate on how many will be working without any paycheck?
I don't exactly, Margaret. I don't have that number.
But will they be able, the air traffic controllers and the security agents at airports, will they be paid eventually? Can you promise them that?
I cannot promise them
please.
that.
So they will be paid eventually. So they're trying to scare the heck out of everybody, okay? Alejandro Mayorkas is saying, we're going to have to shut down the Office of Countering of Weapons of Mass Destruction. So, like, the whole world's kind of picking up on that one. Like, first of all, if you have no way of countering a weapon of mass destruction, even during a government shutdown, then what the hell is the government doing? Period. Full stop. Like, the government clearly is not capable of anything, because if you can't stop a weapon of mass destruction from coming into the country because somebody's not getting paid on Friday, then woo, we got bigger problems, okay? So that's just, something they're flashing out there, trying to get everybody all excited about. And then, the TSA workers are not going to get, everybody gets paid, okay? Everybody gets paid. That's always how this thing works. I have covered so many of these at this point. I mean, it becomes like nauseating. It's like, oh, here we are. It's Christmas, going into New Year's. I remember when, like, New Year's Eve, and Bloomberg was like, well, you come on for the shutdown. It looks like there's going to be a government shutdown, and I'm like, no, I'm going skiing. Thank you very much, people. And then one of my friends had to sit there. I felt bad for him on New Year's Eve, but better him than me. Because this is what happens every single time. And I don't disagree, guys. I mean, shut it down. Here's what we need. We need to know what the heck is in there. And granted, it was offered. I mean, Elon Musk came forward and offered a much slimmer. Did you see the picture? He tweeted this out. There was like the 1,500 page bill. And then there was the one that Elon and Vivek were proposing that was like this, because it was a clean CR. But nope, they want to stuff it full of pork, like all kinds of pork. Here we are days before Christmas, and this is their MO. I mean, we talked about it the other day, right? With Senator Toomey, he came on the show, and it's so crazy because he's like, this is what they do. This is what they do. And you get Chuck Schumer, you get the Democrats. They're just trying to stuff every little last thing that the lobbyists have written. Remember when Nancy Pelosi said, well, we'll find out what's in the bill when it's passed? That's like one of these moments. They don't really even know what's in there because the lobbyists have written this thing. It is monstrous. And you know what it includes? I mean, there's all kinds of crazy things that it includes. Crazy, wacky things, but one of the wackiest and one of the worst in my estimation for the American people is this $50 billion boondoggle that they're stuffing in there to help Big Pharma. So this is something that Big Pharma's lobbyists have worked on clearly, and it would basically prevent companies from having any kind of say in the drug pricing. So the government and Big Pharma would suddenly be deciding the prices on all the drugs. You know who that's helping, right? This is a stuffed stocking spending bill. How do you like that? That's what I call it. Disastrous policies, all kinds of disastrous policies that would basically involve this very dramatic expansion of big government. And we don't want big government. We're not big government people. We're not big pharma people. We don't want top-down economics dictating everything. We believe in the power of the people. And so the American people have spoken. You guys are key to this. I'm telling you, you are everything right now. We together collectively are everything. This was why Elon tweeted this out. I love this. Let me see if I have a copy of it. Because yes, here it is. He wrote, your elected representatives have heard you, and now the terrible bill is dead. The voice of the people has triumphed. Vox Dei, Vox Populi. This is the voice of the people. Again, like, you can't just keep stuffing all this CRAP into this boondoggle and think that that's going to be okay. It's just so wrong. And, I love it because it's now becoming an issue. People are seeing it for all it's worth, and it's getting exposed. I mean, every year, Big Pharma's out there. They're hiking prices on thousands, right, of prescription drugs. You know it, you've seen it, you've felt it. And they ensure that Americans basically stay locked into that. They stay locked into paying their high prices because they're out there blocking competition. How do you block competition? You get the government to help you. They lock in these prices, and then they spend billions of dollars on these obnoxious ads, which run on ABC News, which we were just talking about, and the other networks, CBS, NBC, these really atrocious ads. Like, you can't watch them with your children. You can't watch the evening news anymore because they've got these crazy pharma commercials that come on left and right. And basically, Americans wind up subsidizing those ads for those news networks. And they don't get the lower drug prices. So there's something really wrong with this. I mean, again, Senator Toomey talking about it. Go listen to the interview. I actually packaged it up separately on the channel so you can hear it all. And if you want to know more, you can go over to, I think their website is Pharma Windfall. That's where I read a lot of this anyway, pharmawindfall.com. You can check it out and get more information. But listen, this is why we need Doge, okay? This is why we need people looking at this stuff and being proactive about this stuff. I mean, Congress is in kind of a bad spot right now. I'm telling you, this is not ideal for any of them because they do want to get the aid to the people, the hurricane victims, for example. And we need essential services to stay open. But you know what? We don't need everything else. It's time things change. Like change. This is what this election was about. I told you I'm going to a Christmas party tonight, right? Where I'm going to probably eat a lot. And I think it's hard during the month of December to kind of like stay on track and stay energized. I can't wait for like winter solstice, which is coming up, of course, because then we'll actually have a chance at seeing more light in the day, right? Like it gets dark early and people go to parties and you eat a lot and you probably have a lot of sugar, but maybe you're not like getting the actual vitamins that you need. So one of our great sponsors on the show, and you hear me talk about them every day because I take my vitamins every day and I'm reminding you to take your vitamins too. And hopefully you're taking them from Balance in Nature. BalanceInNature.com is the provider I use for my fruits and veggies, which I take every single morning. You can do this too. Code word Trish. You help the show and you're helping yourself. 1-800-246-8751. 1-800-246-8751. BalanceInNature.com. Go check out their website. You get 35% off right now with my name, 35% off, as well as free shipping. So, do this for yourself, a little Christmas gift for yourself. And I'm not so sure it will come by Christmas, but if you're interested in any of the Trish Regan merch, go to trishregan.shop. We have that all set up, trishregan.shop, with lots of the Trish Regan Show merch, etc. Like I said, I am so happy I'm over here. Fox definitely did me a favor in the long run. Here's a question. Did you notice that Biden is suddenly back in the White House? Kamala Harris as well? Well, everybody's like, what is this about? What is this about? I mean, it's kind of sketchy given that Mayorkas just went on CBS News and said, if we have a shutdown, we have to shut down our Office of Countering of Weapons of Mass Destruction. And then all of a sudden, Biden and Harris fly back into town. They're canceling their Christmas plans. It all comes as a new story reveals just exactly how bad Biden has been and for how long. This was courtesy of the Wall Street Journal. The Wall Street Journal talked to 50 different sources who explained how shut off, how walled off Biden is because he's so incapacitated. In other words, his mental decline has become so severe that nobody wants him to see this. So he didn't even meet, say, with Janet Yellen, his Treasury Secretary. He wasn't meeting with any of the people that he should be meeting with. Everything was going through intermediaries. Nobody wanted anybody to see just how bad he was. And remember when and other broadcasters, streamers were like, hey, he's not doing so well. And I always showed you the whole clip. I didn't try and edit it special. It was worth seeing in its entirety. I remember saying to one of my producers when we were cutting some of the shorts and he tried to clean it up. I'm like, no. And he's like, you really want that long pause in there? And I'm like, yeah, because you know what? That's the point. We can't clean things up like CBS News does on 60 Minutes with Kamala Harris. Remember what they did, right? They actually tried to make her make sense by just slicing and dicing her interview and forming sentences for her. No. We need the public to see just how bad it is. But somehow it was a giant conspiracy theory to say that Biden was incapacitated, that Biden was suffering from mental decline. I could show you some of those clips. I mean, Jake Tapper went nutso on Lara Trump when she said that he was really struggling. And Jake was like, how dare you, how dare you, how dare you? Well, he was struggling. And now it's come out as fact. He's really struggling. So is that why he's not saying anything? He came back, and here we are, just hours ahead of a shutdown. KJP got grilled at the White House today in an abridged, shortened press conference. People want to know, why isn't he talking?
Just last question, Corinne, and I know you have tried to answer it several times, but shouldn't Americans hear from the President of the United States just hours from a shutdown?
What Americans need to know is that you have Republicans in Congress, in the House, who got in a way, who stopped a bipartisan agreement. They got in the way. They created this mess. And I said this earlier when I said, and you all know this, or you report this, it is not easy to get to a bipartisan agreement here in this town. And there was one. Both sides sat down. They came to an agreement, which is a good thing for the American people. We thought we were moving in that direction. And Republicans decided to instead listen and give space to their billionaire friends and not put the American people first. That's what is happening. That's what we're seeing.
Woo! Not glad we cleared that up, Karine. That's not what's happening. What's happening is what happens over and over and over again, where you have bureaucrat politicians just letting the lobbyists do all the writing for them. They don't care. They just pass things. And there's something in there, right, for everyone, okay? Your community gets this, that, and the other. But who winds up losing out? The American people. Anyway, Biden's not doing anything. He's not saying anything. So once again, you get this information vacuum. They all come back and people are like, wait a second. Are you there because of some missile strikes on Kiev? Are you there? They're citing these foreign media sources. Are you there because of the shutdown? Why are you there? Are you there because of the drones that we keep hearing about? Biden wants you to know, nothing to worry about with those drones. He's really inspiring confidence here.
Those drones over New Jersey. What's behind all of that?
Nothing nefarious, apparently. But they're checking it all out. I think it's just one. There's a lot of drones authorized up there. I think one started and they all got it. Everybody wanted to get in the deal.
So apparently it's just copycats. And by the way, it's all in your head, right? That's basically what he's saying. There's all these drones up in the sky. It's nothing nefarious. And because people are talking about it now, you're seeing things. You think you're seeing drones, but you're probably not seeing drones. And Donald Trump's like, I'm going to avoid Bedminster, New Jersey this weekend because I hear the drones are right there.
You're home of the drones.
Good to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you. Good to see you.
Can you comment on the drones?
I'm going to jump in right now. We've got some breaking news just crossing at this moment. The House has approved a 3-month government funding bill, sending it to the Senate, which is hours left before the shutdown deadline. So again, the House has just passed that spending bill. It's considered a rather important monumental step towards averting a government shutdown. It's happening just hours, of course, ahead of the midnight deadline tonight. The House voting to extend government funding for 3 months. Again, hours before this shutdown, the new legislation would keep the government open, but it would not include the debt ceiling increase that President Trump had asked for. It now goes to the Senate. So this is looking as though it passed 366 to 34. The only lawmakers voting to oppose this bill were the 34 Republicans. So we shall see. We shall see where this goes. I think no matter what, it's really critical. It's really, really critical. If they've got 3 months, we gotta hold them accountable, right? I mean, that's the bottom line here. It's so important right now. Again, we'll get more information and we'll bring more to you, but a lot of change is going to be happening. I would say this, you consider the Wall Street Journal article, you consider how much he was declining and the fact that they prevented the media from talking about that. That was no-go territory. You were conspiracy theorists if you dared to suggest it, if you dared to say it. And I got a kick out of Jesse over on Fox because he said he wouldn't be surprised He wouldn't be surprised if we learned that, oh gosh, what if Donald Trump actually won in 2020? And there really were shenanigans that went on. This is an interesting, by the way, you can talk about this now. You used to not be able to talk about it, but they've changed the rules. So you can talk about this now. Interesting timing, especially given what I'm going to tell you next about the Pennsylvania voters. But first, let's watch Jesse. He's funny.
The 50 sources say they noticed in the first few months that he couldn't handle things. But do you remember they're using COVID as an excuse for him not to campaign, not to get out there and to have the basement campaign where, remember, cars, they would beep if they supported Joe Biden? There were 8 of them.
Yeah, so they kept the COVID structure throughout the rest of the presidency. And he was treated like an aging dictator, an aging king. You know, the same things they said about Trump were true of him. He was isolated. He was out of touch. He was mentally unfit. People were keeping things from him. Mm-hmm. They wouldn't give him bad polling. They wouldn't give him bad headlines. He was AWOL during the lead up to Afghanistan. People were trying to get him on the phone at key moments.
Yeah.
There's no way to get a hold of the guy. And he delegated his presidential powers to his staff, Judge. So when people ask, well, who's really the president? It was his staff. Yeah. His staff were executing the duties of the president. And I think it was April 2021, right out of the gate, they were canceling meetings because he was having a bad day. So all this conspiracy theory about, Joe Biden shot, he's a puppet, it was true. I mean, at this point, we're going to find out he stole the election from Trump. At this point, the way things are going.
Jesse?
I'm just saying the way things are going, I wouldn't be surprised if we found that.
The amazing...
Like, oh my gosh, he said it. Well, he said it. And you know what? Here we are in this moment with this story to report. Pennsylvania. It looks as though Delaware County prosecutors are announcing charges against a Collingdale woman who say repeatedly tried to submit voter registration forms for dead people, and against an elderly man who cast ballots in both Florida and Pennsylvania last month. The 2 cases resulted in just 1 fraudulently cast ballot, so that's good. That of the man who double voted, one of the more than, 330,000 cast in the country. But that's not good, right? So here's the attorney talking about it.
And it works is she would use the app to go online and send in the information to the state to get somebody registered to vote. The state then requires certain pieces of information, one of which is your driver's license or your last 4 digits of your Social Security number. If they have those successfully, they can upload that information from the state databases, send it down to the county. The county, it's called a verified registration. The county, Jim's people then go and put your vote or your ward and precinct and all that information and actually issue you a card, a voter registration card. Some of them, the state can't verify, and they send them down to our election office or whatever county it is. And those people then get contacted through what's called a HAVA letter. That's the Helping America Vote Act. Federal law was passed in 2002 after the 2000 election fiasco. That letter basically goes out to that person saying, we can't verify this information, can you give us more? Jim's people, and Jim is one of the people, and I think Crystal, who noticed that some of these that were coming in from Ms. Hill's app were the same variations of the same name. Again, this person who died in her house in 2011, she tried multiple times to register that individual, Mr. Reed, using either different spellings or different addresses or different email accounts. They noticed these clusters of these fake votes fake registrations. And they immediately contacted Tanner and Doug, and we began an investigation. That has led to the charges today. Ms. Hill is being charged with, again, 4 counts of registering people, including her dead father and a person who died in the house she currently lives in 2011, that she was the one notified authorities that he was dead in that house. So she knowingly registered dead people or attempted to register dead people through the state system. she did register a fraudulent person, and my understanding is this is sort of a gap in the system where by putting in no date of birth and no social security number, is that right, Doug? It goes through and it became a verified voter registration.
Wow. What do you guys think of that? Listen, it's not okay. Like, one time is not okay. Now, the good news is they're saying this didn't result in a lot of problems, but look, they need to shore that one up. They really, really do. I mean, and you think about how crazy, like everything that we've been through. Fani Willis just getting disqualified. I mean, trying to go after the former president on racketeering charges because he dared to say, hey, like maybe we should recount the votes in Georgia. You're not allowed to ask these questions. Fani Willis, now she's, out on her fanny, so to speak. Fani, excuse me, pardon my French. Fani Willis, out on her fanny right now, completely disqualified. I mean, they can't. The case is DOA. Like it's going nowhere. They'll throw it out, and then you get the Court of Appeals. We're waiting on that, and I'm getting a little annoyed here because that should have taken some 30 days, and now it's been too long. So we'll see what happens on Letitia James, who thinks that she can come in between a bank and the bank's client to determine what the valuation is on a given piece of real estate. Because, Letitia really knows real estate. Come on. I mean, that one's just crazy. Alvin Bragg, unbelievable. I mean, those charges never should have been brought. Not even Jack Smith brought those charges. They didn't have the jurisdiction to do it there in New York. And what we're going to find out, this is why we need caution there, we're going to find out that there was a whole ton of shenanigans and everything was being orchestrated from this administration. Maybe Biden didn't even know about it because Biden didn't know much. Biden wasn't clued in on anything. He didn't even know how bad his polls were. According to the Wall Street Journal piece, nobody showed him the bad polling. Nobody showed him the bad headlines. Nobody even gave him relevant information about what was going on in Afghanistan. Maybe we could have prevented 13 American soldiers from having died in Afghanistan, not to mention the hundreds of Afghanis. I mean, horrible stuff. Horrible stuff because you got a bunch of bureaucrats in charge. Those days are over. That's what I'm excited about. That's what I'm happy about. That's why I actually think the market's going to keep going up. At least I'm a long-term believer in owning really good stocks for the long haul. We have an income builder portfolio. We have an American resilience growth portfolio. We have an inflation protection portfolio. You can get all three of them if you join the Founders Club at 76 Research, or you can get the free stuff. Free stuff is good too, right? I mean, 76 Report's only $1. I think you can spare it. $1 a month, guys. DOLLAR. Use that code, okay? $1 a month for the first 2 months. Then it goes to $9.95. Go to 76research.com. We have a lot of good information for you there. Or like I said, you can get the free stuff. Investinmaga.com. Investinmaga.com. Great to have you here. I'm going to be back over the weekend with some updates. We'll see what happens with the shutdown. And then we got a big week next week. I'm going to be here. I'll be here every day. Okay? So I'll see you then. Have a good one. I'm off to my Christmas party. Bye-bye.